The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star.
Welcome into our first off-season edition of Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Haley Sutton, Aisha Morrison, and Jess Navarez with you. Girls, I feel like I haven't seen y'all in so long. I saw Aisha at lunch yesterday, and I gave her a big old hug.
Yeah, she gave me a hug.
I would give you a hug, but I literally sprinted in here.
We'll do it afterwards. That's okay.
I was like so confused because she's not lovey like this. I was like,
yeah, she's not.
This lady missed me.
I'm not an affectionate person unless it's with Marcel. But yeah, I missed you guys. I feel like there's so much that we have to talk about.
There is. There's a lot.
This organization. I'm glad you guys stayed safe during that weird deep freeze. I know it was a weird time for us. I chose to move during that week, so that was a lot of fun. But speaking of moves, the Cowboys have made several since we've been gone.
That's a good segue.
Thank you.
That's really good.
Thank you. Knocking the rust off.
Yeah,
So obviously, a few weeks ago, after the disappointing loss in the playoffs to the 49ers, the Cowboys made coaching changes. They got rid of 6 coaches right off the bat before eventually deciding to part ways with Kellen Moore. That led to Mike McCarthy calling plays. But before we get to that, I want to talk about Kellen Moore and just his impact in leaving. I know we've had several conversations on this show just about, what our thoughts on Kellen Moore are, thoughts on the offense. But with a move like this, how do we kind of see this shaping up to affect the offense going forward?
Oh, guys, we're rusty. We are rusty. I
gotta gather my thoughts.
That's okay. That's all right. It's early. We are not used to being a morning podcast, so we're all in this together. I hope everyone's drinking their coffee with us because this is nothing but coffee, black coffee at that.
Oh God.
Who am I? I don't know. I think as far as the Kellen Moore move, it was the right call. It was time, and I respect what he did while he was here as far as, high-scoring offense that he kept, pretty continuous. And not only just with Dak Prescott. Look at Cooper Rush and the success he had throughout his duration in this season. So I respect Kellen for that. I'm interested to see what he does with the Chargers now. I think that's going to be something I specifically keep my eye on next season. But I think a move like this allows for the guys to kind of take a step back and go back to their fundamentals and really during this offseason and then going forward, focus on what was not working for them and fix those pieces and take those steps to ensure that, yes, you're a high-scoring offense, but you're a consistent high-scoring offense, because the thing that was missing the most was the consistency, because when they were great, they were great. When they weren't, well, there was the downfall. But I think having consistency, and then I'm excited to see what Mike McCarthy is going to do with this offense. More than anything, I am so excited. And, I think going back to when he was in Green Bay, remembering those days as a Cowboys fan, watching Mike McCarthy call plays, it was terrifying. So to have that and be on the other side of it now, it's a little bit of a relief. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
Aisha, how do you think it changes the play calling? Or I guess before we get into that, what was your assessment of the play calling this season, and how would you like to see it change with Mike McCarthy calling those plays?
Yeah, so, we've talked about it a few times here, is that there was just a constant, it felt like a lack of consistency with this offense and how it was run. There were sometimes we would see guys have breakout weeks, and then the next week they were not involved in the offense at all. Just some of the things that were structurally going on. And obviously, we can talk about it. Some things have come down the pipeline. There was a difference in, I guess, there were differences between Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore with the play calling and how they would like to go about things. One thing is, it seemed like, and even Kellen joked about while he was here, was just the idea of running the ball continuously. We saw it when Cooper Rush was playing, but that was I also just felt like the consistency and like, what is this team's identity? What does this team do well? And there were several times where we'd be like, oh, they do this well. And then the next week it was like, okay, well, maybe they don't do this so well anymore. So, or what's going on. So moving forward, I think it's important I think it's being overstated right now just how much this team offensively needs an identity, something they can go back to when everything else is failing. And moving forward also, I mean, what Kellen Moore did for this team, I felt like keeping them, like you said, keeping them in the upper echelon statistically and then performing well was great. I just feel like there was a lack of who gathers that side of the ball when there's like everything is wrong. But with Mike Solari coming in as the offensive line coach, I'm interested in that just because, you know, he does some things in the run game that I think these tight ends, these young tight ends and stuff, like they'll be more involved consistently. And with Mike McCarthy, I have never really gotten the chance to see him as a play caller, as an adult and understanding the game. So I've been kind of taking a look back at some of the stuff he would do. I guess where I am with him is just kind of staying open-minded because he hasn't called plays in so long. So I think it's unfair for us to be like, oh, well, this is what you should expect. Because the same could be said about Dan Quinn before he stepped up in here. And this is a gentleman who changed his philosophy. So I'm excited to see what happens and also for the benefit of the players, for them to be put in the best situations to make plays and do the things they do well consistently moving forward for this offense.
I love that you pointed out to just keeping an open mind when it comes to some of these changes. And I was talking to someone upstairs about just this organization in general and how you get a different perspective of this team when you work for them as opposed to just, you know, cheering them on as your team that you support, right? And something that we were talking about was the loss to San Fran and how everybody considers this year a failure because we didn't win the division or we didn't go to the Super Bowl. And it's so crazy how when you look at everything that this team accomplished this year, I mean, finishing 12-5 in the regular season, or 12-4, I guess, in the regular season, and then 13-5, or whatever. Numbers are hard. It's early. They finished 13-5 is the point I'm trying to make. But, you know, the offense was top 10. The defense was top 10. You have a quarterback in Dak Prescott who really wants to be successful. You've got playmakers across the board on both sides of the ball. And it's crazy how you kind of have to shift your mentality a little bit when thinking about all facets of this team, and that extends into the coaching as well. I think we have to keep an open mind in seeing how Brian Schottenheimer is also going to step in at OC and how he's going to work with Mike McCarthy. I think to me that's the most interesting thing that I'm looking forward to is how much control does Schlott really have, you know, or what is going to be his role alongside McCarthy? How are they going to work together? Because I don't really know that it's a secret anymore that towards the end, Kellen and Mike had a little tension. They had they butted heads on some things. So I'm really interested to see how that relationship develops. And I think you mentioned too, Dan Quinn coming back. I think we all collectively celebrated. That is such a win for this team.
It's been that long since we've talked.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, I was thinking about it the other day. I know we had to be kind of quick with it, and we didn't get to talk last week and stuff. But if that defense that came out and played against the 49ers, if that defense, because I'm just saying, if that defense comes out and plays like that next year, because I'm at a point too with the defense, I'm like, I'm gonna stop doubting them because I think coming into this season, a lot of people were like, well, can they get as many turnovers? That doesn't happen anymore. Like, oh no, this is no fluke. These gentlemen are well coached.
And they did.
Yep.
And they did. They were dominant. And so, and just even to just see how they improved in the run game, there was an emphasis to improve on the run game. Like, there's a lot of it came together in that 49ers game. We saw it, and it was just, to me, like a flash of just like, okay. Yeah. Like they're getting better every year. So I'm really excited to see that side of the ball. But I mean, I know we talking about offense, but my bad. Yeah, I gotta say, I don't know if they got enough credit.
The defense, so that's perfect. And I think that's important to note too, because when you think about where this defense was, I don't know, 2020 and what it looked like.
We don't remember that year.
And now when you talk about this team and the defense being the identity, I think when you look at free agency, like sure, you want to get some offensive weapons in here to help shore up that wide receiver room, maybe figure out the running back situation. But really, I think it's important to make sure that you're bringing back a lot of those guys that were on the teams, the Donovan Wilsons, the Leighton Vander Esch. I mean, heck, even Anthony Barr was a really big impact player, Jonathan Hankins, down the stretch there with the run defense. So I think it's really important for that side of the ball to continue to be cohesive. It's so strange too. Like everyone's been asking me, like, oh, like, what does your time look like now that the
Yeah.
season is over? And it does feel weird because you get so attached to, I guess, the routine of, okay, on Monday, it's Mike Day, and then on Wednesday, I'm going to go chat with J-Ron or Michael Gallup or whoever it is. And so it's been kind of strange around here, just like going up to my desk and working on some off-season projects. But yeah, so obviously a lot of coaching changes. I think that's a good point for us to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these free agents on the list, and we will let Aisha dig into some of the stuff she's been working on the draft show. This is Girl Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Pepsi-loving football fans, it's time we had a lesson in trash talk. And I'm not talking about that stuff that happens on the field. What I'm talking about is trash, and it's the only thing that belongs in your garbage can. Now, recycling might not be as thrilling as converting a 4th and long, but next time you're thinking about throwing that Pepsi Zero Sugar bottle away, just cap it back up and pretend you're down by 6 with the recycling bin wide open. Know the difference? Make a difference. Be a team player and recycle. Visit PepsiTrashTalk.com to learn more.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And they snap it to Prescott, who looks right. It's not there. He escapes left. He'll run for a first down.
Just like football, when it comes to crypto, it's important to have a team you can trust. With blockchain.com, I know I'm in good hands. Since 2011, they've been trusted by millions around the world to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency.
Prescott's going to run this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Jess?
Just steps away from the Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters in Frisco, visit the Star District, your destination for excellent dining, premier shopping, and exciting events. You can visit thestardistrict.com for more information.
The Star District, where some of these guys on this free agent list may or may not be coming back. I'm looking at it. It always surprises me when I look at this list of like how many people are actually on there and how many, like really important pieces are on this list. So we kind of talked about this before the season trailed off. 20 guys on the free agency list that we are tracking. Just a couple off the top: Dalton Schultz, Anthony Brown, Leighton Vander Esch, Anthony Barr, Jason Peters, Jonathan Hankins, CJ Goodwin. You've got Connor McGovern on this list, Cooper Rush, Brett Maher, Tony Pollard is, I think, one of the bigger ones, but I'm almost positive they're going to franchise tag him. Like I'm not worried. I was worried about Tony mid-season, but I don't feel as worried.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. But you also have Donovan Wilson on this list. Special teams ace Luke Gifford is on here. So really just a lot of guys who were so important to the success of the team this year. My question for you ladies, how important is it to get deals done with as many of these players as possible? Or do you see a road in which this could maybe shape up and you can figure it out without striking deals with some of these guys? Because like I said, it's hard because
I think it depends on who it is.
There's so many people on there, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on who it is because, and this is no hate to any of these guys, right? If it were up to me personally, they would all be back. But when you look
get a contract, you get a contract.
That's not how it works here, guys. I unfortunately do not make those decisions. But when it comes to somebody like Dalton Schultz, for example, and I'm using him as an example because he's the first one on the list right here. But that's a really hard position to look at because you have this young tight end group that you didn't necessarily know was going to be as good and impactful as they were at the start of last season. So when Dalton had the chance last season to get his deal going, assuming that would maybe be the case again this next season, I mean, what a
Jake
turn
Ferguson
of events.
enters the chat.
Right. Exactly.
Yo,
so
his stock go. I'm sorry.
it's hard to say, but somebody like Leighton Vander Esch, who you clearly saw, and this is again no shade to the defense, you saw a drop off in the run defense when Leighton was not in the game. Same thing with Jonathan Hankins. So it's not negative. That's hyping Leighton up because a lot of people were hating on the Wolf Hunter there, and I don't stand.
Who, by
for
the
that.
way, just celebrated a birthday a couple days ago. So
Happy
happy
late birthday.
birthday to Leighton Vander Esch.
I would do a wolf howl. It's just too early for that. But
We're okay without you.
and then
that, actually.
it's obnoxious when I do it. His rookie season, I would just randomly do it at my family gatherings and just randomly do it.
Ma'am.
I knew what it meant. Or something. Even looking at like Jason Peters, who was impactful in more than just ways on the field. So what was interesting too is looking at all of this. You have guys like Brett Maher, who it was said that Jerry talked about at the Super Bowl. They're going to move on from kicker, and that's interesting. So you now have to look at situations of, okay, you can, as a Cowboys fan, you can be upset with Brett Maher and his postseason performance, justifiably so, but now you're in a position that kind of you were the start of last season and off-season and training camp of who's going to be your kicker, because somebody has to do it, and that was a whole thing. So I think it just depends on who you're talking about specifically when it comes to that.
You're right. Like, as far as like who you're talking about, because I actually was just talking to someone about Donovan Wilson, and for me, I'm like, yeah, you want to bring. Donovan is one of those people. Like, yeah, there are safeties on this roster. Marquise Bell, Israel Mukuamu, I think might have made things kind of weird. The fact that they were trying to make him this hybrid.
He was like, oh, I can play safety.
He was like, no. He was like, hey, guys, I'm a corner. The corner that you drafted, So I think that might have changed some of the conversation. But just as far as like the safety room with Donovan, I was just having a conversation. Like, is he a guy? Can you go maybe get a guy in the draft, a young guy that's going to play similarly to him and stuff? Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple guys that are on my list.
And Donovan or Israel?
Donovan.
Okay.
Donovan. Like, if you wanted a gentleman to come in and kind of play the role that Donovan played, you could draft a safety to do that. Absolutely, whatever. Or Marquise Bell could come in if you don't want to pay Donovan Wilson. But are you going to have the same tone setting? Are you going to have the same, just that viciousness that he starts the game with, and and how it kind of trickles down to the rest of the defense? I'm like, those are the other things you have to consider with these players. Is like, who are you letting go? Who are they in the locker room? Are they leaders in that locker room? And you mentioned Jonathan Hankins. Dude, I mean, if you don't bring back Jonathan Hankins, then you gotta go get a DT, because Leighton will thank you. Anthony Barr will thank you, because we got to see that having a big body in there, how much it helped even the rest of the offensive line. But even like Dante Fowler, it's like, I mean, he had one of his best seasons here. He was one of the biggest playmakers, especially on the defensive side of the ball when this pass rush was getting going. And so it's like, there's just decisions to be made on if the Cowboys are going to feel like they can draft these positions. Connor McGovern's a big old, like, what's going to happen, y'all?
I know, right?
Even
What's
someone
gonna
like
happen?
T.Y. Hilton, what do you do with that situation?
Yeah,
Can
but
you do something with
we
it?
actually had a really interesting conversation.
Look, I want to know.
My hair on the mic.
I've
there.
been watching Disney movies.
Who was it that I was
from
having this
Tarzan.
conversation with?
Such a good song.
Oh, it was Brad. Brad and I on our last Cowboys hour with Will McClay. One of the things that we were kind of talking about, like off air, was just the notion that some of these veteran guys are going to take what we coined the T.Y. Hilton approach, right? Because T.Y. was very adamant in this offseason in saying, I want to play football, but not right now. I promise my kids I'm going to be there for them. I promise them that I'm going to, show up and be at all their football games. So when everything, when they're all said and done, then sure, then sign me. And I think you saw that work out really well. Another really good example of that is Ndamukong Suh, and now that man's playing in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So I think when it comes to T.Y. Hilton, I think guys like that aren't as high of a priority simply for the fact that you saw the payoff that it took at the time when he was signed. And it definitely elevated the wide receiver play, right? But I think that's a position in which I would rather you dig into the draft or dig, and see what kind of deals, what kind of trades you can make to maybe bring in a seasoned guy, but like a less seasoned T.Y. Hilton.
Sure.
That's just kind of how I feel about that.
Wide receivers are, I guess, not easier to find, right? But more out there.
Sure.
You have other options. And unlike somebody like Brett Maher. Kickers are not as common to find.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. It's just challenging because it's like, kicking is so hard to me personally. I think it's the hardest position on the field besides corner because it doesn't matter that Brett Maher hit back-to-back 60-yarders against the Vikings. It didn't matter that he had, most of his kicks, I would say 45 to 50% of his kicks were, 40 yards or out, and he nailed them. It doesn't matter that up until the playoffs, he was drilling extra points. I think he'd missed 3 or 4 going into the postseason before that. It doesn't matter because everybody's attachment is to the fact that he, quote unquote, choked in the playoffs. And we obviously know it wasn't a choke, but, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because you saw the payout. You saw, years past when he was here and he wasn't successful and they cut him and then everyone was nervous when they brought him back. And then all of a sudden it was like Brett Maher for MVP. And so that one's challenging for me. And I think kickers are such a luxury because it's really challenging to have a guy like a Justin Tucker, that is going to be consistent always and forever. So Brett Maher is interesting to me. Now, Jess, you were talking a little bit about Jerry and just some of the things that he had mentioned at the Super Bowl. He also spoke... Senior Bowl. What? I don't know why I said
it's
Super
early.
Bowl because the TV's on.
Yeah, Travis Kelce's over here talking.
Yes, he was at the Senior Bowl. Nick Eatman was there and got a chance to catch up with him, got a chance to catch up with Jalen Tolbert as well. Some really good stuff from the Senior Bowl. So if y'all haven't checked that out, go to our website and to our YouTube. There's a lot of really good nuggets on there. But Jess, what stood out to you about Jerry and just some of the things that he said in that conversation?
Yeah, and I think this was a very vulnerable Jerry Jones when you go back and you watch that video. And it was things that he hadn't said all season that, it's you can't. When you're in season, there's certain things you just don't say at the time. And so it was very interesting to watch what Jerry had to say specifically when it came to, just being honest and being vulnerable and laying it all out there, quite frankly. I mean, he even got asked, hey, do you have any regrets about your offseason moves last offseason with, said wide receiver who shall not be named? And he was like, look, let's address the elephant in the room. And, what I loved, he didn't use Amari Cooper by name. You knew what he was talking about, but a little interesting nugget there. And it's no secret that, you need more weapons for Dak Prescott. You need a built wide receiver room. You need that. That's not a secret. And what was funny is the OBJ conversation actually got brought back up, and he said, yeah, we're going to keep looking into it this offseason. So I thought our OBJ watch was done, guys, and maybe it is, but
But here's the thing about OBJ, though, that to me kind of stands out. It's like now there's no pressure.
Yeah.
Right? Like now the ball is extremely in the Cowboys' court because before when they were courting him, there was so much competition. There was a lot of the unknowns. Now I kind of feel like OBJ is at the mercy of teams because he's got to work out. He's not going to get signed until he works out, right? And I think he's going to be an asset regardless, but I think you have to look at okay, well, is he the OBJ we remember? Are we getting the Rams OBJ? Are we getting the Giants OBJ? Are we getting the Browns OBJ?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with OBJ watch being back on.
Yeah. Well, especially not in the thick of the season. That was stressful, guys. That was so stressful. He's in the building and we're all on edge.
It was fun though, right?
It was until it wasn't. It was until it wasn't.
It was like a circus.
Literally. We were sitting in here, right here.
When he left.
And then he, passes by and Jazzy's like, just so you know, OBJ just passed by and we're like, something else interesting that he mentioned was he got asked specifically, does Tony Pollard's injury impact any deals you might make with him this offseason?
Yes.
And Jerry was blatantly honest, said no.
No,
it doesn't. And,
not at all.
There was other guys on this list that I think were questionable to maybe return. There was the rumor mill spinning about Tyron Smith and possibly trying to, release him to save some cap space. And, Jerry confirmed, if it's up to me and I see the future here, both Jason Peters and Tyron Smith are going to be back on this team, which usually if Jerry wants something, he's going to get it, right?
So, is that how it works?
No comment. I think that was interesting because that was, on the outside, that was a big question mark is, hey, is Jason Peters going to come back? I thought that was interesting. He also talked about Zeke and saying that if it's up to him, Zeke will come back. And he doesn't necessarily see a decline in Zeke's productivity. And that was interesting. Of course, he touched base on the whole Kellen Moore situation. And what I liked, too, is he mentioned how valuable Kellen Moore was to this franchise and kind of how he grew within it, starting as a quarterback, because, that's really how I know. That's how Jerry saw him grow. I'm recapping here. Don't look at me. I didn't say
Aisha.
I'm sorry.
For me.
Drink some coffee. It was interesting little nuggets from Jerry. You should go listen to it. A very honest, very truthful Jerry Jones who came out, and I appreciate that. I appreciate some transparency, some honesty there. So that was interesting.
I thought Steven was such a juxtaposition from Jerry, because this was, I think as Jerry, continues to do this every year, kind of like Mike McCarthy, where that vulnerability and that honesty aspect, he kind of is just to the point where I think that's the easier method than to try and be tricky. And I think Steven is a little bit more like, this is what's happening. Yeah. This is how I feel about it. Because the thing that stood out to me about Steven was when he was talking about Zeke. And he said, hey, listen, we're no strangers to what Zeke has done for this organization. We'd love to have him back. We love him. We love the guy. We love what he stands for. But if the money ain't right, the money ain't right. And so it's so interesting when you see, the difference in thoughts and how we're going to get some of these guys back. And it is a good listen, like you mentioned, Jess. I think that's really a lot of good stuff from Jerry, a lot of good stuff on our website, too, that our writers have been cranking out, too. So lots of good stuff for you guys to look at. We're going to go ahead and take our second and final break. I promised you we would listen to Aisha talk some draft. So we're going to help you guys get ready for the upcoming Combine. We're going to kind of talk about the Senior Bowl and some prospects that Aisha has her eye on when we come back on Girls Talk, Boys Talk.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, Pepsi-loving football fans, it's time we had a lesson in trash talk. And I'm not talking about that stuff that happens on the field. What I'm talking about is trash, and it's the only thing that belongs in your garbage can. Now, recycling might not be as thrilling as converting a 4th and long, but next time you're thinking about throwing that Pepsi Zero Sugar bottle away, just cap it back up and pretend you're down by 6 with the recycling bin wide open. Know the difference? Make a difference. Be a team player and recycle. Visit PepsiTrashTalk.com to learn more.
With Smoothie King's original Angel Food and new Angel Food Slim without added sugar, you no longer have to choose between treating yourself and hitting your goals this summer. You don't have to choose between great taste and feeling great. Because at Smoothie King, every blend is made with whole fruits and no syrups, so you can satisfy your cravings without compromise. The only choice you will need to make is which one is best for you. Try our classic Angel Food or the new Angel Food Slim, blended without added sugar. Smoothie King, rule the day.
Welcome back to our third and final portion of Girls Talk, Boys Talk here on our first off season. What are you doing over here? You're like throwing off my mojo.
I was trying to be quiet and flipping the page because we came back and I hadn't finished that yet.
Well, you go ahead and read that read, girl.
Thank you so much. I was trying not to be obnoxious with the paper and the mic and okay. Anyways, you can get the ultimate fan experience for the ultimate Cowboys fan by joining Dallas Cowboys United presented by Globe Life starting at just, do you remember, guys? $20. Woo!
How can we forget?
And get your fan pack, exclusive benefits, and more. Visit DallasCowboys.com/United for more details to join today. I missed you guys.
How can we
love
forget?
it. We love a good $20 deal.
You know what? Don't get me started. $20 can get you a lot of money.
It can get you a lot of money.
A lot of things.
Let me know how. Let me know how.
I'll let you know what I do. It is early, Haley. Let me drink my coffee.
I know. This is normally we'll be on at 10. And so I think that it'll be a little bit better at 10 o'clock. We won't be battling the traffic as much. And it's me. I won't be battling the traffic as much. So it's just an adjustment. Thank you guys so much for bearing with us. Let's dig into what the offseason looks like for the Dallas Cowboys. So obviously the current players have all gone. They're working out or hanging out or vacationing, whatever it is, a well-deserved break. A lot of them working out with current players, working out with teammates, working out with guys across the league, whatever it is. But that gives us an opportunity to dive into the future and what this franchise looks like in the future. We obviously just had the Senior Bowl. I think the NFLPA Bowl also happened this weekend, the Shrine Bowl as well. So a lot of college games that happened. And our very own Aisha Morrison, give her flowers. She has been working so hard on the draft show with Kyle and Bobby and Brian. So we are so proud of her for that. But Aisha, I just kind of want to open up the floor to you. Just some things you've seen on that draft show, and then we'll kind of talk about maybe what some needs that we see and go from there.
So, like, what is the biggest, like, if you were going to, at 26, which is almost the second round, right? But whatever. But at 26 right now, what would you pick right now?
Oh, my God.
What do you think is the big? I mean, it's okay to go.
She flipped it on us.
Yeah, she did. Oh, flip the script.
I want to know.
I want to go there. God, don't get me started with that TikTok again. Okay. I think the obvious answer is you need a corner. You know, I think that's the obvious answer that everybody is looking for, right?
I wasn't expecting corner, girl.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
I know. I watched her face when you said that.
Oh, she is up there. Hey, girl. I thought that was, to me, I thought that was the obvious answer, right? Because that was, I guess, a position, especially going into postseason, that everyone was so worried about. And, oh, you know, Tom Brady's going to pick on the corner. Like, to me, you don't want to have a drop-off at any position. And not that there was too much. I think Dan Quinn did a very incredible job there, you know, making sure everybody was prepared. But I think a corner, so that way, you know, given injuries and you know, guys returning, you have that safety net, if you will, that gives them that time to really, really rehab and really take this offseason, take their time to get back to full form. I want to say wide receiver too, but
Yeah.
that's hard. It's hard because you also have, you know, if OBJ's on the table, I don't know how I feel about drafting a wide receiver because you have a young wide receiver room already. You need some veteran leadership in there a little bit. So
oh no, girl,
I'm torn.
They gonna draft receiver. They have to.
Yeah.
At 26?
Here's my
They're
thing.
not at 26. Maybe not at 26 because you don't want to just go need.
I thought we were talking about 26.
No. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, they're going to draft a wide receiver at some point in this draft. Like, it's just 100%. I mean, I think they might double dip.
I think at 26.
Okay,
this
yeah,
is
I want to hear it.
This is my hot take, right?
Uh-oh.
This is my hot take.
Get the popcorn ready.
And I don't think this happens because he's too good. But I think if Bijan is still available, you got to take Bijan.
Do you really feel like that?
I do.
Really?
I do.
You really?
She said it was a hot take.
It's a hot take. But I just think, like, he is such a gem. I think about the way that he kind of went from a nobody really knew who he was to he's getting NIL deals from Lamborghini and, you know, whatever it is. And obviously that's off the field stuff. But just the run style, the way he plays, I almost feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he feels like a hybrid of a Tony and a Zeke to me. I feel like he is, like I said, he's just a gem. So I think if he's available, you have to take him.
Question for you, though. If that does happen, does that put the nail in the coffin for Zeke?
It might, and I hate that. And Zeke knows I love him. Zeke, he's
We're just talking from a business standpoint.
He's my favorite in the locker room by far. But I just think that, like, when you're trying to figure out how you can shore up your run game, that's my hot take.
Okay. Well,
I mean, it's a great take.
no, there's nothing
great
like a lot. That's actually a huge discussion right now. Like, I was actually thinking about this the other night, and then I'll tell you guys like what I think about some of the guys I'm looking at. But in regard to Bijan, I call him Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. His name is Bijan.
Oh no!
And so mine, I call Bijan Sub-Zero.
Yeah,
that's his nickname.
Love that.
So
that's great.
I love that
I think
game.
that could stick. Actually.
I know it can stick. I'm trying to look Jazzy. get me right.
Get your rights going with
but
that.
yes,
That's gonna
Sub-Zero has really got Cowboys fans' attention. And I was actually thinking about this today. Is like, it's so crazy. Like, if you're a running back in this generation right now, I'm not saying that they feel undervalued, but can you imagine, like, when Zeke and Saquon and those guys got paid and when they got drafted, like, you knew they were probably going to go in the first round. Like, you knew that. And now that running back, I'm not saying it's not as valuable, but it seems like people they think it's expendable in a sense. It's like, I can get a guy to do this the same way that the Cowboys look at tight end. They're like, I'm going 4th round and I'm just going to develop them. What you mean? And so I actually empathize in a way for some of these young running backs coming up because the conversation's so different now. Like, a couple years ago, I feel like, well, not even a couple years ago, I feel like we would have been like, oh yeah, Bijan's going to be like a top 5 pick. Like, but now it's like, he might be there in a day, you know, like, and and that's just
I don't
crazy.
think he's there.
No, I don't think he's there. I don't think he's there, but I just think it's so crazy how the conversation's changed about running back and how I think that's gonna affect the running back position. Now, I do have a running back I've been looking at, though, the gentleman from Alabama, Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs. Roll Tide, baby.
Oh, God, get a grip.
He said get a grip.
Get a grip. But he impressed me, I think.
Jahmyr is great.
Yeah.
He changed, as someone who spent time covering that team, he changed the way, he kind of brought back the Mark Ingram-esque type.
Where is it?
Where the running back starred at Alabama, but he is so versatile because he's like a wide receiver. Like, he's built like a wide receiver, but he plays like a freaking running back.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to talk about this draft class of running backs now. I feel like the power back is fantastic, but people right now are looking for running backs that have some receiving qualities. And so when you look at a Sub-Zero, when you look at a Gibbs, like, these gentlemen to me are some of the guys. Who's the gentleman from Tulane that went crazy?
Oh,
He went nuts. I got him here. Tajay Spears.
Yeah.
Just these gentlemen are showing, like, okay, if you toss the ball to me, I can make something happen out of this. And when I look at Jahmyr Gibbs, I honestly really do think he could be a guy that if my bad, I'm sorry, it's slipping me. But if Sub-Zero's not there, if he's not there, then they could probably
That's a great option.
Maybe grab Gibbs because I think he's a guy that can make the best out of tosses, screens. And when you look at who is our new OC? Shotty. When you look at Schottenheimer, that's a part of his game. Screen, like, the Cowboys have not had a screen game for. The longest screen I think I've seen was in 2016.
Dang, you had like a little like
you're envisioning.
Yeah, like one of those like
because it was
bubbles that pop up in movies that like you think back and it's like replaying an old clip.
I know y'all remember that, like, in 2016 when Zeke would get a screen, people were worried it was going to the house.
Yes.
Like,
it was over him.
Granted, that offensive line was nasty, but at the same time it was like the Cowboys could screen well. They could do these quick things to help, defer from the pass rush, and those are things that they weren't able to do this year. Like, we saw screens in the last couple of games, and people were rejoicing on Twitter. Like, was that a screen? Did you see that? I ain't seen one all season. I'm like, y'all get a grip. Are y'all for real right now?
Get a grip. Is that your new saying?
I know.
Get a grip.
That's new. That's kind of aggressive. I like it.
I'm gonna get a shirt.
I was in the ice
grip. Aisha Morrison.
I was in the ice storm. Like.
It's just a little
we was isolated so long.
She's releasing.
I'm out of there.
Well, I'm out of here. Something too is you're talking about giving Dak weapons. There you go.
Yes.
It doesn't just go back to the wide receiver core.
Yeah.
You also have to, tie in ends wherever you can.
Yeah.
That helps.
If it was up to me, I'd draft that whole Alabama draft class.
Stop.
I would take Bryce Young. I would take Will Anderson. I would take Jahmyr Gibbs. I would take Bryant Branch. I'd take them all.
But you know what? With Jahmyr, though, is like, how do I say this in a nice way? The fact that he's a transfer
from Georgia Tech
makes me okay with drafting him. Because running backs from Alabama, they got to, well, maybe y'all don't know, but
I don't know. I'm like, what do they have?
It's just like some of them last in the league and some of them don't. Okay. Like, I don't know what it is. It's hit or miss with him. But the fact that he's a transfer kind of eases my mind a little bit. But yeah, he's one of the guys I was really looking at the other day because he has soft hands. And one thing. Y'all.
Goodness.
Y'all.
Guys.
I can't. He has soft hands as a receiver.
I've never heard that.
Soft hands?
I've never heard you say that. when we're talking about football. I've never heard you say that.
Because I got to get into the draft verbiage.
I love it, but it kind of threw me off too. I was like, huh?
Do you have soft hands?
I don't. I feel like I don't.
Nah,
You do.
I
You
still
really
got
soft
callous
hands.
from being in the military. Nah, I ain't letting you do me like
Nah,
that. They're not that bad.
I feel like Haley's are really soft.
They're not that bad.
I can't reach you.
Okay,
We're like holding hands across the table.
Are we doing
Can
kumbaya? We gonna get taken off there. Y'all
Draft
got
Haley Sutton.
But no, like he.
Put her in, Coach. Mike, if you're listening. Soft hands.
Go ahead, Aisha. I'm
left.
sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
no.
Don't let me and my soft hands distract you.
No, it's okay. But we also too,
Your
since
soft hands are distracting me.
I was looking at a lot of offensive line because the Cowboys gonna draft offensive line.
They have
baby.
to.
They gonna go offensive line, and I do. To your point, you were talking about Jerry and how Tyron Smith. They're talking about Tyron Smith maybe coming back. Jason Peters. Yo, if you got those guys as depth guys, you're swimming in it. And also too, we're waiting on Matt. Well, let's go. I don't know how far out he is, but. He may be a guy that is, in there as a rotational piece. And so I think the depth of the offensive line is shaping out to be pretty good from what it sounds like. We're not sure yet. But if not, I know they're going to draft offensive line. So I've been looking at tackles that you could maybe turn into a guard, kind of how they were thinking with Tyler. And what is his name? My bad. His name is Tater Tots. Where is it? It's in front of my face. Oh, my bad. I have it written. I'm sorry,
You're
y'all.
doing so good.
I'm riding the bus because I have his name written down, but then I think I spelled it wrong, and I don't want to mess it up. Oh, there it is. Warren McGlendon from Georgia is a guy that I think if he's right now he has a neck roll and everything. He looks Tyron-ish when I see him out there, but I feel like he could transition to guard and be successful there. And so I've been looking at him, his hands, and what he can do get into the second level. And I know that they're going to want to run the ball in this offense moving forward. So there are a lot more tackles in this draft than there are guards. So I've been really trying to look at what tackles could really be converted to a guard, like Osiris Mitchell. I think he could be a guard if you wanted him to be, and if they could fit, because I think there's a bigger need at guard for the Cowboys right now than it is tackle. It feels like if you get another guard, you can maybe be okay, independent of what happens with McGovern. And wide receiver, I had Rashee Rice as my guy to look at, SMU receiver, and I felt like because he's close to home that he could be a guy that was on the Cowboys' radar. And you saw Dak Prescott post with him. I don't know I'm sure they're just training and working out or whatever, but his showing at the Senior Bowl wasn't. He had a couple splash plays and things like that. I kind of worry about how much separation he's going to get, and if that's something that they're really trying to, since that was such a thing that was hammered this year, was the lack of separation, the route running, and I'm really thinking that maybe they may go less of a possession receiver, and more of, can this guy get open on their own? But we'll see. I mean, he has time to show himself. Show what else he can do. But I do think that he's a strong, big slot player that can make a difference in the offense. And he's a good contested ball catcher. So I don't know. I just saw him. I liked him, and I was really looking for him in the Senior Bowl. And he did some things in practice. I felt like he made some plays, but I'm not sure if he's going to fit what maybe they're looking for right now with how much you want guys to get open and have separation on their own now. So that's what I got so far, y'all.
Awesome. Well, you were doing such awesome work with that show.
Yes.
If you guys have not tuned into the draft show, it's every Wednesday and Thursday at 11 o'clock. It's got our own Aisha Morrison, Kyle Yeomans, Brian Broaddus, and Bobby Belt on it. So a lot of really good, really influential voices for this organization. So tap into that. Aisha will actually be hopping on that in a couple of hours, so you have your first chance to listen to her. Thank you guys so much for bearing with us through this first morning episode of Girls Talk, Boys Talk. We are still getting used to the early time. Next Thursday, we'll be on at our regularly scheduled time at 10 o'clock on Thursday. And we will try and do these check-ins with Aisha every week just to see what she's working on and who you guys should be paying attention to leading up to the draft and the combine and all that. But that's going to do it for our first off-season episode of Girls Talk, Boys Talk. We will chat with you next week.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!